What is going on, everyone? Brad here from MTG Jankster, coming at you guys with my very first deck tech. Today we're going to be talking about a commander that you've most likely seen at the commander table. Most likely you've seen either Super Friends, +1/+1 counters, or even Infect. But today we're going to be talking about a different way of playing Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. Now, like I said, we aren't going to be playing Atraxa Super Friends with a bunch of planeswalkers on the battlefield. We are going to be playing synergies with +1/+1 counters, and we most certainly are not playing a bunch of infect creatures. We are going to be playing a 4-color blink deck that revolves around blinking a singular creature, a creature that I played during Standard when I first started playing Magic, and that creature is, of course, the one, the only, Siege Rhino. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what Siege Rhino really does, for 1, a white, a black, and a green, we get a 4/5 with Trample that says when Siege Rhino enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 3 life, and we gain 3 life. So the deck is mainly revolving around abusing that ability multiple times, blinking it several times, copying that blink trigger, and just making people lose life over and over and over again while also raising our life total. So when it comes to copying that ETB trigger, we're playing cards like Yarg the Desecrated and Panharmonicon. Each of these cards will copy that ETB trigger, and with both of these cards out, we're going to be draining our opponents for 9 life each and gaining 9 life ourselves. We're also going to be playing a copy of Strionic Resonator, an artifact for 2 mana that says you could pay 2 and tap it to copy target triggered ability you control. Now when it comes to actual blink spells, we're playing a couple at 1 mana each, including Cloud Shift, Ephemerate, and Essence Flux. Cloud Shift is just standard. You can blink your creature for only 1 white mana. Ephemerate, you can do the same thing for 1 white mana, but it also has Rebound, so at the beginning of your upkeep, you are also going to be casting this for free, basically making 2 blink triggers for the price of 1, and we are also playing Essence Flux. For 1 blue, we could do the same exact thing. Then we have a couple of blink spells at 2 mana each. We have Teferi's Time Twist for 1 and a blue, and Otherworldly Journey for 1 and a white. Both of these will have our creatures enter with an additional +1/+1 counter, which will only buff our Siege Rhino up to a 5/6 with Trample, which is really intimidating, and if we need to swing with it, we can get in for damage. We also play a copy of Momentary Blink. For 1 and a white, we can do the same thing, blink a creature, but it also gains Flashback for 3 and a blue. We can cast it from our graveyard and exile it as a resolve to get more and more blink triggers. And finally, we are playing a couple of blink spells at 3 mana each. We are playing Ghostly Flicker for 2 and a blue. We can exile 2 target artifacts, creatures, and or lands you control, and then return them to the battlefield under our control. And we are also playing Eerie Interlude for 2 and a white. We can exile any number of target creatures we control and return those to the battlefield at their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Eerie Interlude not only blinks our creatures, but it also protects our creatures from board wipes, so it's honestly one of the best cards in the deck. We're also playing creatures that like to help us blink Siege Rhino. Both Deadeye Navigator and Eldrazi Displacer do this. Deadeye Navigator, as long as it is paired with Siege Rhino, you can blink it for 1 and a blue, and Eldrazi Displacer blinks Siege Rhino for 2 and a colorless. It enters the battlefield tapped, but it's not usually a big deal. We're usually going to be doing Eldrazi Displacer at the end step before our turn, so it's not really a big deal. If it enters tapped, it's just going to untap right away anyway. We are also playing Soul Herder and Conjurer's Closet. Both of these cards blink a creature at the beginning of our end step, and Soul Herder gets bigger every single time we blink a creature. We are also playing Flicker Wisp, a 3/1 with flying, that when it enters the battlefield, it just blinks a creature, as well as Brago King Eternal, a 2/4 with flying, that when it deals combat damage to a player, we can blink any number of permanents that we control, pretty much going to be Siege Rhino every single time. And finally, we are playing a copy of Rune of the Hidden Realm, a 4/4 with Vigilance and Trample that says you can pay 2 and tap Rune to exile another target creature you control. That creature will come back under our control at the beginning of the next end step, so he also serves as a single target protection plan for any of our creatures. Going into the next part of the deck, we want to be cloning Siege Rhino as much as possible to maximize the number of times we can have it enter the battlefield. We are playing copies of both Clone and Vizier of Many Faces. Basically, they enter the battlefield as a creature that you control, but Vizier of the Many Faces can come back as a zombie version of the creature that you control. Spark Double basically says you can copy any target creature on the battlefield. It enters with a +1/+1 counter, and it also, if it targets a legendary creature, the legend rule pretty much doesn't apply. So if we want to copy Yarg the Desecrated or Rune of the Hidden Realm, we could do that without having to sacrifice one of them to the legend rule. Clever Impersonator is a card that lets you copy any target card on the battlefield. We can target Panharmonicon if we want to, but unfortunately, unlike Spark Double, we can't have multiple legends. We also play a copy of Progenitor Mimic, a clone for 6 mana that says you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has at the beginning of your upkeep, if this creature isn't a token, create a token that's a copy of this creature. Basically, as long as we can control the main version of Progenitor Mimic, we can keep creating copies of a target creature. Most of the time that creature will be Siege Rhino, but sometimes, as you'll see later on in the video, we have some other creatures that will help us out with good ETB triggers. And finally, we were playing Rite of Replication, a clone spell that says put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature, and we can pay 5 to kick that spell. If Rite of Replication was kicked, put 5 of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. That pretty much says put 5 Siege Rhinos onto the battlefield, and with either Panharmonicon or Yark of the Desecrated, we are draining our opponents for 30 life each, and we are gaining 30 lives in the process. The final part of the deck we're going to be talking about today is just the other creatures that we have pure value when blinking are just really good enter the battlefield triggers. Starting out with Coiling Oracle, we get a 1/1 that says when it enters the battlefield, we reveal the top card of our library. If it is a land card, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise we put that card into our hand. Either way, we're going to be ramping or drawing cards, both good things you want to be doing in Commander. Watcher for Tomorrow is another 2-drop. It is a 2/1 with Hideaway, and when it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them underneath Watcher of Tomorrow, and when it leaves the battlefield, you could put that card into your hand. We're going to be blinking this creature a lot, especially if we get it out early. We want more and more cards in our hand because, obviously, card advantage is something that is huge in Commander. Mold Drifter is just a classic blink card. We can evoke it for 2 and a blue, and with either Yark or Panharmonicon, 3 mana to draw 4 cards is pretty solid, or if we want to hardcast it, we could always just hardcast it for 5 mana, have that on the battlefield for as long as possible, blinking that to get maximum card draw. Thragtusk is another great creature. We get a 5/3 for 5 mana that says when it enters the battlefield, we do gain 5 life, and when it leaves the battlefield, we get a 3/3 green beast creature token. We are also playing a copy of Peregrine Drake, a 5 mana 2/3 flyer that says when it enters the battlefield, it untap up to 5 target lands you control. Basically, with Yark or Panharmonicon on the battlefield, we are going to be targeting up to 5, 10, or even 15 lands. And we are also playing Diluvian Primordial. When it enters the battlefield for each opponent, you may cast up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Again, with Panharmonicon or Yark, we can be casting up to 9 instants of sorceries from people's graveyards. And finally, Agent of Treachery. Basically a big card in Standard right now. It says when it enters the battlefield, you gain control of target permanent, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't control, you get to draw 3 cards. Most of the time you're going to be stealing people's creatures or artifacts or whatever that is key to their game plan, and if they are short on mana, obviously sometimes you want to steal their lands, make sure that they don't really get the cast. It is sort of mean, and I don't really like to do that most of the time, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do to win the game, and stealing people's lands is something that really denies them resources. And that is all I have for you guys today for my version of Atraxa. I know playing Atraxa is something that is frowned upon even before you shuffle up at the commander table, but hopefully playing it in this way will help open new doors for people. The full deck list will be in the description below, and if you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like and hit the subscribe button for more deck techs like this. My name is Brad from MTG Jankster, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.